Lita wasn't really scared of hospitals. She'd grown up around them. Her mom was a nurse, her uncle a doctor. She'd seen enough white walls and blinking monitors to know that fear usually comes from what you don't understand. But Harapan Lama Hospital was different. It wasn't the age, though it was very old. It wasn't the flickering lights or the cracked tiles in the hallway. It was the way people talked, or more accurately, the way they didn't. No one ever mentioned Ward 4. Lita was just a university intern, sent there to help with admin stuff, filing papers, taking patient records. Nothing dramatic. But from the very first week, she noticed it. There was Ward 1, Ward 2, Ward 3, then Ward 5. She asked once, casually, during lunch, "Hey, what happened to Ward 4? The room went quiet. One nurse looked at her like she'd asked about someone who had just died. Another just said, without looking up, "We don't use that hallway anymore." No one explained why. No one ever said the word haunted, but the silence said enough. One night, Lita stayed late. It was storming outside, and some patient files had gone missing, so she helped sort things out. By the time she was ready to leave, it was almost 11:30 p.m. She passed the usual hallway toward the exit, but the light at the end of the corridor was flickering. Just ahead was the entrance to Ward 4. She hadn't even noticed it before. It wasn't locked. It wasn't boarded up. Just there. Quiet. Still. The lights inside were on, and she could have sworn there was someone sitting on the far bed, not moving, just there. Lita stopped walking. Maybe her brain was playing tricks. Maybe she was tired. She turned to go back, but just then, the nurse call bell went off. It wasn't from the active wards. It was coming from Ward 4. Then silence. She stood frozen for a second, and then the bell rang again. She walked to the front desk. Only one nurse was there, reading. Sorry, is someone in Ward 4? What? The bell rang. Twice. I think someone's there. No, that's not possible. I saw someone in there. Lita? Yeah? There is no Ward 4. That was what the night nurse told her, softly, calmly, like she meant it. Like she wasn't trying to scare Lita, just warn her. But the bell had rung. Lita had seen someone in that room. The lights had been on. So what did she mean, there is no Ward 4? The next morning, Lita felt like she was carrying something heavy in her chest. Not quite fear, not quite dread. Just a growing sense that something didn't add up. During her lunch break, she slipped away to the archive room. It was dusty, hot, and full of cabinets no one had touched in years. She found a drawer labeled Ward Records. Most of the folders were brittle, some written by hand. She flipped through until her fingers stopped on it. Ward 4. It existed. At least once. There were shift schedules, room assignments, daily notes from nurses written like any other ward. Then she found something strange. A shift log dated last week. One name stood out. Nurse Dia R. Sasmita. That name was familiar, not because Lita had met her, but because her photo was hanging in the hospital lobby, a memorial plaque, in loving memory of Nurse Dia Sasmita, passed away in service March 2004. But this record said she worked the night shift last Thursday. Signed in pen, fresh handwriting. Lita felt cold. Either someone was messing with the records, or someone was working from beyond the grave. That night, she didn't go home. She stayed at the hospital and waited. At exactly 11:13 p.m., the hallway lights flickered. Then came the first bell. then another. It came from Ward 4. Again. Lita stood still. No one else heard it, or maybe no one wanted to. Then came the sound of wheels, like a gurney being pushed slowly across the tiles, and then footsteps. Not in front of her, behind her. She turned. No one. Just the same old hallway. Empty. Still. The next morning, she passed by an elderly patient, Mr. Ronnie, sitting up in bed. He waved her over. "You were working last night, weren't you? I was just helping out. Ward 4? Did you go there?" "Ward 4? I was a patient there. Long ago." "Really? What happened?" "I never left." That's what Mr. Ronnie said. Not in a creepy way, not to scare her. He said it the same way people say, "I've lived here all my life," like it was just a fact. But Lita couldn't stop thinking about it. He didn't mean he stayed long. He meant he never left. That night, she couldn't sleep. Her thoughts kept drifting back to the hallway, the flickering lights, and the bell. Always the bell. She needed to understand. She needed proof. So the next day, Lita did something reckless. She went back to the archive room again, and this time she looked for patient records. She dug through the folders until she found a thin, dusty file. Name, Aditya. M. Age, 7. Ward, 4. Admission date, 17 August 2003. Discharge date, blink. That's all it said. Just one photo. A little boy in a hospital gown. Face blurry, old ink bleeding into the paper, but something about his smile tightened her chest. It looked exactly like a photo she'd seen at home, in her family album. She checked again. Same name, same face, same younger brother. Aditya died when he was 7. That's what Lita had been told her whole life, a sudden illness. She'd barely remembered him, but this file, in this hospital, said he was never discharged, and the photo looked newer than it should. That night, Lita stayed behind one last time. She stood at the edge of the forbidden hallway, staring down at the door of Ward 4. The bell hadn't rung yet, but she was already shaking. At exactly 11:18 p.m., the sound echoed again. It came from Ward 4. Again. So she stepped inside. The hallway stretched longer than it had before. Too long. The beds were all made, clean, neat, except one. At the very end, under the flickering light, one bed had its sheets folded back, as if waiting. On the pillow sat the file. Her brother's. And next to it, a small silver bell. Lita picked it up. Suddenly, all the lights in the ward shut off at once. The door behind her slammed, and someone whispered right beside her ear, "Your shift has begun." The next morning, a new intern asked the front desk nurse, "Excuse me, is Miss Lita around?" "Lita? Yeah, she was here last week." "I'm sorry, but we don't have anyone by that name." The intern looked confused. "That's weird. I saw her yesterday. Are you sure it wasn't just one of the night staff?" "Maybe. She was wearing the old uniform." "What uniform?" "White. Long sleeves, name tag said Dia something." Some bells aren't meant to be answered. Some doors aren't meant to be opened. And some patients never leave.